Hi, it's Michael and Anthony here presenting Small Business Banter. A healthy micro and small business sector means a successful economy and a more vibrant society. Small Business Banter is about helping regional business owners better prepare for the current challenges, but also for the next stage of business success. I'm Michael Kerr, founder of Kerr Capital, advisors to business owners. Each week, with Anthony Turner from the Small Business Mentoring Service, we'll interview a different small business expert or a fellow business owner and get them to share their best tips and insights for you, the listeners. Small Business Banter is brought to you from the studios of 104.7 Gippsland FM and is heard across Australia on the Community Radio Network. Thanks also to our supporters, Kerr Capital and the Small Business Mentoring Service. On today's edition of Small Business Banter, really pleased to welcome in Mark Horwood, who is the founder and CEO of Captivate Connect, and he's going to tell you about what Captivate Connect does, based in Perth. Welcome in today, Mark.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you to your listeners for tuning in.
With me also is Anthony Turner from the Small Business Mentoring Service. Welcome in also, Anthony.
Hi, everybody.
So, Mark, really great to have you in. As I said, telco, pretty hot topic for regional Australia, particularly business owners, but also residential customers. Firstly, to get us underway, could you just give us a little bit about your personal business background and also what Captivate Connect does currently?
Yeah, basically I came ex-farming community. My parents were farmers and I ended up farming for quite some time as well. But in between that, I sort of specialised in real estate and property, finance, those sorts of things for a number of years, and then got into telephony back in 1994. Then I looked at telephony as really being quite a boring experience for people. Basically, you rang up. If you weren't connected, you were listening to those lovely things called Mr. Whippy Greensleeves. And that used to really pee me off immensely. So we developed a little bit of technology, and a few other companies around the world, and Australia did as well, in order to replace those green sleeves with something that was a bit more interesting and a little bit more informative. So hence the world's on-hold messaging type things were born effectively in Australia, strangely enough, because the Americans were still a good decade behind us. So since that time, I've sort of stayed within that with that sphere of telephony, and we've supplied telephony now, those sort of systems and phone systems to businesses right throughout the country, from based in Perth, because we find that the big telcos aren't that flash at giving good service, and they really want to focus on the big cities, the Sydney and Melbourne, and they don't really care about anybody else. There's just not enough profit in it. So we provide that service to people within the country and in the smaller cities as well as Sydney and Melbourne, whereby they can get better quality service and the best possible product in the world, whether they're in Sydney or in San Souci or out of Bullamakanka.
So when you say you're talking about telephony, it's providing phone systems and the back end systems to, which is really the underpinnings of a lot of regional business, right? The telephone, internet is the passageway into a business, isn't it?
The core to it, yeah. Particularly in the country, as you know, Michael, you've got situations where it can be a long way to go to your nearest shop front. So you have to do a lot of business on the phone, both as a consumer and therefore the business needs to do it by phone. And hence, having a good phone system is vital. Having a reliable one is vital. And having one where the customer comes first is also vital, because people have a higher expectation these days of what can I expect? They don't really like this, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3 for that, and you press 4 and you're going to end up in some call centre in India. Particularly people in rural and regional areas, they're human beings. They're not tech heads. They just really want to be able to deal with a human being. And that's where the telephony side of it comes back in again. We create human beings on the end of pieces of plastic which actually talk to you.
Just interesting point that you raised there, Mark, just before was that, about the customer first thought processes. I think, a lot of businesses, whether city or regional based, tend to are so wrapped up in what they've got to sell or what they've got to do that they forget that it's the customers that make the biggest things. So, what sort of advice would you give them in terms of using telephony and or the digital tools and everything else about ensuring that they do get that customer first attitude going?
Well, that's an interesting question, Tony. A good question, but there is now some research around the world provided by a company called Gartner. And there's now, of the Fortune 500 companies in the United States, 80% now have a director of customer experience. Not just customer service, but customer experience. And what do you get in rural and regional areas that you don't get in cities is customer experience. You don't get customer feedback in the city. You get press 1, press 2, and end up in India somewhere. In rural and regional areas, we rely upon the fact that we have relationships with people. And that is what we have to look at. That's going to be the future. That's where the bigger companies are really struggling where the big city companies are struggling to be able to come to terms with it, because it's run by IT people. And IT people don't have a really good focus on the customer experience. So we're there trying to bring that level of customer experience that you normally expect from a regional and rural business into the cities whilst maintaining it. And the country people just do it better.
Yes, there's a lot that can be learnt from the way some of those regional rural businesses are run, where they do put customer first. And nice to hear it's being sold back into the bigger cities as a way of doing business. At the moment, there's coming through COVID, we're hearing a lot about a move of people, employees, companies, businesses to the regions because, lifestyle choices. What are your thoughts on the capacity and of the existing infrastructure to support more people, more businesses in the regions?
The NBN is out there. 5G is coming. Both Optus and Telstra are quite reliant upon 5G. And I had a meeting with the West Australian, Northern Territory, South Australian guy who runs the NBN, as a Sky Muster or whatever they call the satellite up there. They're investing a lot of money in that. So the government is very, very committed to providing a better and more reliable internet service. And that's the one thing that rural and regional Australia has suffered for so long. It's almost come to the stage where it's almost expected. And it's also expected in a rural area that, it might be a couple of days before we get our phones back. Well, that's not acceptable. And I think this government is saying, hey, the technology's out there. And if we want to do it, then we need to do it better. So I think over the next few years, we will see a faster, far more reliable internet connections to the cities, to the rural and regional businesses. And therefore, that will create then that opportunity for more people to move out of the city without having to miss their Netflixes and their good communications that they've enjoyed.
In your experience, Mark, is there a greater reliance upon and greater usage of technology within sort of rural and regional communities? I remember doing a project some time ago where we were looking at apps, and there was literally thousands of apps available for farmers to use and things like that across the world. So, that would indicate that there is a higher reliance and necessity for quality telephony and or services, infrastructure services and everything else in the rural areas.
Yes, there's so much technology available now. And I think probably the hardest part is getting the information about that technology out to rural and regional areas, because of the fact that we don't think about it because we know that our mobile phones might drop out unless we're with the big T, 10 miles out of town. Do we rely upon an app? Not at the moment, but we will as time goes by. So there are lots and lots of bits of technology available. Like farming, for example, going back years ago, was you drive a header and you just sort of line up the right-hand side of your machine and hope like, you didn't miss it. Now you just press a computer. It's all done by satellite. It's really, really lazy, but gee whiz, it's efficient. And that technology is out there because we're using satellites. The satellites are up there. So gradually over the next few years, I think we will see the internet technology improve vastly within the regional areas. And so it's a matter of the businesses in rural and regional Australia also getting ready for that. In other words, getting those apps ready so that as soon as we get that reliability, then communicate that and tell the people about that we've got a new app for you to buy your parts or buy your fertilisers or do business with us, however. So
Mark, certainly interested to hear your thoughts on, we've touched on tech in agriculture there. What other small businesses do you work with and how are they using tech, internet, telephony to really make their business more efficient, more profitable, easier to run?
Well, if we take the telephony, the business telephony, which is our sort of core business, that's the one I probably know better than farming apps. I wasn't a very good farmer. But if we take that, for example, in the historic old system, is that you have to try and get a tech to come out and plug in a new handset if you've got a new employee. To find a tech in some of these towns might cost you $500 to get somebody to drive in, and it might take you 2 or 3 months to get a new line put in if you had this new employee. With the new technology now based on the internet, all you do is you say, okay, I've got a new employee starting tomorrow, and his name is Michael.kerr. Okay, cool. So, Mark, can you send out a new handset? Bang, we'll program that handset up and just go and plug it in.
So this is IP telephony we're talking about.
IP telephony, yeah. Well, the days of the copper line network are pretty historic now. They're going to wind it down completely. They're going to shut it down. So anybody who still is using the copper line network, get ready because they're going to shut you down sooner or later. You'll need to go to IP. It's a matter of just timing it right because the efficiency gains will be the cost-saving gains. For rural and regional Australia, we used to have to pay, an STD call every time we rang somebody in the nearest city or even the nearest town. With internet telephony, you don't pay that at all. It's just a call over the internet. So it can, in some cases, be totally free. You pay a little bit more, but nothing like what you're paying now for a call, and you get a really high-quality call. You can also have situations there where, if somebody's away in a rural area, for example, for the day away from the office, their call is just automatically sent to their mobile phone or their laptop. And they can work from home. Same as in Victoria, a lot of you guys are still working from home. So I could ring your office, and I don't know whether you're working from home, whether you're in an airport, or whether you're in New York having lunch. It's just going to ring on your desk phone and your laptop and your mobile phone simultaneously, and no one knows where you are when I'm talking to you.
Yeah, so it's going to take the development of some trust for companies to, with their employees not knowing where they are. That's a whole other matter. But look, we are talking today on Small Business Banter to Mark Horwood, who's CEO of Captivate Connect, working with telephony in regional and rural businesses. I wanted to slightly change tack. Mark, artificial intelligence is. Do you want to explain your interpretation of what artificial intelligence is? It sounds pretty ominous, but I'm interested in your definition of what it is and how it so it can relate to small business owners and how they might start to think about using AI in their own businesses.
Yeah, good point, Michael. AI is a sort of a term that's developed a little bit beyond its actual true position. most AI is mechanical learning. The machine itself has to learn what to do, and at the moment, it doesn't have its own intelligence. So mechanical learning is probably a better way. But if we look at let's compare the city to the country. If I was to ring the local elders in Bullamakanga, for example, chances are the person at the end of that phone would recognise me. They might recognise my phone number. They may not have it in the database, but they might recognise, hey, is that you, Mark? I said, yeah, it is. How are you? That's human intelligence. What the large organisations are trying to do is to replicate that by voice recognition, again, machine learning. So the taxation department does it, whereby you have your voice recorded, and those voice patterns are recognisable by their database. And so when I ring in, I say, hi, it's Mark Horwood here. And that recognises, bang, Mark Horwood. I don't even have to say my name. And it goes to an operator, possibly in India or wherever, and it says, hello, Mark Horwood, how are you? Whatever. It can recognise it. It will also then pull up that database and say, okay, cool, Mark, last time you were here, you bought a Big Mac with fries and a Coke. Would you like a Big Mac with fries and a Coke? Oh, yeah, I do. I feel important because you now know me and you know what I last bought. And therefore, I feel good about that. So that's where artificial intelligence is sort of heading in that telephony world. It's learning what we've done and what impact that can have. So if I was a dress shop, for example, and I know that Mary Jones is a size 12, say, hi, Mary, how are you? I've just got this new dress in, size 12. I think it'll fit you perfectly. How does Mary feel? Great.
I think one of the great things about that, Mark, is that customer service aspect of it. One of the other sides of it, though, that I think a lot of listeners would be concerned about is the potentiality for cybersecurity and protection of data and information and everything else. So, with these systems that you're talking about coming through, how robust are they likely to be so that people can feel confident in them and that their privacy is going to be protected?
Therein lay $1 million question, Anthony, because each of those is going to have its own challenges, because you're talking a small business that's recording this information. You will now come across probably 50% of large businesses that you call that say, thank you for calling ABC, your call's being recorded for quality and training purposes. Now, those calls are generally recorded and stored in the cloud, and they're encrypted. So they're very, very safe because they pay a fair bit of money for that service. But using artificial intelligence, and it's no different really, though, from me going into that dress shop or my wife going into that dress shop, and they write down that Mark's wife, Amy, was a size 12 and she likes bright blue. It's really no different from that. If, for example, you use your credit card to go to a restaurant, the credit card details, they sell that information to you and they know exactly how much you spend on restaurants month in, month out, how much you spend on everything month in, month out. That information goes to the banks as well. So if you make an application for a loan and you put down your details, how much do you spend on restaurants every month? $500. Okay, cool. They scan your credit card details and say, well, you don't. You spend $1,500. So I think we have to accept the fact that some of this information that we're already giving is going into the public domain. Same as Facebook. People, they put their lives on Facebook and then wonder why people advertise at them. That's what Facebook does for a living.
It's a good. I like the way you define that. Often it does take a little bit of a historical perspective just to make us realise that things are different, but they're also the same. And we've got privacy has been a concern for a long time, and maybe it's on steroids now. But I'm just interested in a lot of at the smaller end of businesses, myself included. Mobile phone is your business, and I think people are starting to get realise that they've got to have downtime, and they're personal mobile? Is there a business mobile? And it's, one and the same. You can't turn it off, can't get away. I've often contemplated myself the idea of, an IP telephone. It doesn't really matter what, but just, to separate business from personal. You got any, perspective on, because if you're a small business owner, you've got to keep your energy, you've got to keep your focus, and but also that boundary between personal and
work
and business.
Yeah, the days, Michael, of having to have a desk phone in our office are optional now. I think it was PricewaterhouseCoopers in the middle of Sydney just rolled out their whole new phone system. There's not one handset in the whole joint. It's all being answered on their laptops and on their desktops and their mobile phones. So that's a big, big organisation that's saying, ta-da, give me flexibility, give me the freedom to take the school where I want to. But in specific answer to your question, I think is spot on in that we need to be able to use our mobile phones for work. But at some stage, I just want to say, rack off. But if my wife rings, I might want to say rack off. But if my girlfriend rings, I want to take that call. So how do I do that? So what we do there is we provide basically an app that goes on your mobile phone. So instead of having that desk phone, you might have 03 9624 1234 is your office phone number. It rings on your mobile phone and it rings as an app. And so you answer it as Kerr Capital, can I help you? Bang, bang. Cool. And then at 5 o'clock, whatever, it automatically says, thanks for calling Kerr Capital. Our office hours are from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Please leave a message and we'll ring you back tomorrow morning. Okay. Same as you would in a big office. Your mobile phone, however, which is your wife or your girlfriend ringing, will ring, different ringtone, doesn't come up on the app, it's just your normal mobile phone. If you want to ring out on the business, you use the app and it comes through as Kerr Capital on the 03 number, not the 41, whatever it might be. So
it's an excellent practical, use of some technology, isn't it, to help start to break down the boundaries or in fact reinforce the boundaries, between work and.
Similarly, when you're working from home for months and months and months on end, it's very hard. I found it very hard anyway to be able to differentiate, to say, okay, cool, it's now 8 o'clock. I'm going to just turn on and go to work. It's now 6 o'clock. I'm going to turn off and become a father and husband again. And so with these things, it's a way of doing that. The phone, you tell it what time to answer. You tell it what time not to answer. You tell it on weekends, rack off. But if you need to be reached on a weekend, you can have a recording on there that says, thanks for calling Kerr Capital. We're unavailable at the moment because we're closed. However, it's an emergency for an after-hours call or something or other. Please call this number, boom, 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 which is a different number altogether, which you do answer because it's an emergency one. So in the case of a fuel supplier, for example, where they might have an emergency, then it'll go to their mobile phone. But they don't publish that mobile phone number anywhere else other than emergencies.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
So that's where the technology is going. There are so many variations to it. So, for example, in the regional areas and even in city areas nowadays, getting information out to people is difficult because people don't read anymore. You send a brochure out to somebody and it just goes straight into the bin. You cut down a couple of trees, paid a couple of printers, paid the mailman, and it goes straight into the bin. How do you get that information out to them? Electronically. And you can do it as simply as, so thanks for calling ABC Enterprises. Have you heard about our new Ford? That's called a Ford dealer. Have you heard about the new Ford Mustang? Oh, what a car. On the new Ford Mustang. Enter your mobile number in now. Bing. There it is. Sitting in my hand is a brochure from Buller-McCann Ford of this new Mustang. I can now forward that through.
Yeah, one thing for sure, I'm going to have to check out where Buller-McCann is because it must be a place that you like a little bit. You've referenced it a few times. You re-quoted something along the lines, while there's been a recent and slight decline in call numbers, the importance of those calls has increased significantly. Can you just give us to finish? I think that's quite a profound statement. Could you just give us a little bit about what underpinned your quote or that requote? Because I think it goes to the way a lot of people should run their businesses.
Yes, we do research because our telephony system allows us to count all sorts of different things. And so we were able to count the number of calls, which during COVID, for example, up until the beginning of COVID, was on a gradual decline, the number of calls overall, because when we're buying our widgets, we're buying them online. I want 100 widgets delivered to my house at 22 Smith Street. Here's my credit card, bang. I don't need to talk to anybody to buy a widget. When that widget turns up and it's blue, even though you may have ordered blue by mistake, you don't go back and say, please resend you pick up the phone and tell them they've bloody got it wrong. And generally they have. So whilst the number of calls, and this is the global research suggests that the number of business transactions involving a human voice on a phone will drop from 72 to 70 to 68 in about 5 years' time. And it'll remain about that 68 number, but the importance of those calls will go right up.
Yeah, that's look. It's I think there's some real gold in that. Thank you so much, Mark. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wrap up. We appreciate your time. We've been chatting with Mark Horwood, CEO of Captivate Connect. Appreciate your time today, and we wish you well in your business, Mark.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Anthony.
You're welcome, and good to talk to you, Mark.
So that's all for today's episode of Small Business Banter. Anthony and I continue to be inspired by bringing you small business experts and other small business owners and hearing their stories. For any of the links, resources or information we've talked about on the show today, or to contact Anthony or myself, please head over to smallbusinessbanter.com, or you can find us on both Facebook and Instagram. Anthony and I would love you to tune in at the same time next week for another episode of Small Business Banter.